And we're live.
Welcome back to Insight Club. Today we are talking about whether AI can understand us better than humans can. Stick around. The first rule of Insight Club is you don't talk about Insight Club. You do Insight Club. The second rule of Insight Club is the only assumptions we make about one another are that we all want happiness and we all want to avoid suffering. The third rule of Insight Club is you check all your other assumptions at the door. We hope these conversations will bring you insights that incite you to action. Welcome to Insight Club.
And you ask yourself, where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
So before we started the podcast today, Megan asked me where was my mind, and I shared that I was wondering because I tried this prompt in ChatGPT, asking based on all our interactions so far, what do you know about me? And I was pretty surprised with the answers they gave me, even more when I asked to give the unfiltered answer with all the positive and the negative about me. And I said, like, are we at a point where an AI is going to understand us better than humans understand us? And Megan said that she has some insights on that as well. So
Can we hear a little more first? Like, what surprised you?
So first of all, I knew the first things that it said because it knew like what I do. It knew about my music, so we knew that I was creative, that I was an artist, that I was a mentor. All of those things, it knew. It gave me a very good like summary of who I am. That even like helped me see like, oh yeah, I am all those things. You know, when you are reminded of who you are, that's something that friends do for you sometimes. And then when I got to the negatives and positives, it could see things that I normally don't share, like the tendency to be more perfectionist, the tendency to overthink, all of those things that I know that people who are closer to me might know in you. But I was thinking, like, based on what are of the things that I'm putting in here,
Yeah.
it's getting that. Like, there were a lot more things than that, but like, it went quite deep into some of the things that I wouldn't expect an AI to know.
Thank you so much for sharing those details. I just got clarity around one of my like prejudices around AI that it hasn't been this clear before. But as you were saying those things, the question that came up for me was like, how does that compare to what it's telling other people? Because on the one hand, it's like, okay, I want to like honor what you're saying. Like these are things that knew about me that feel like they're not commonly known. On the other hand, I'm hearing perfectionist tendencies, overthinking, and I'm like, a lot of the population would resonate with that. And so this image I had that helped me understand, like, oh, this is one of the reasons I'm so prejudiced against AI, is of somebody who's not actually a spiritual intuitive, but who makes a living saying, oh, there's somebody here speaking to me. There's a Jay. And they wait for the person in the audience to go, my husband John died. You know what I mean? Like somebody who's really good at reading a room, but is manipulating people. Now, I don't know how AI would do that because it's not like, I mean, maybe this is total, like a totally, like not, maybe my analogy is off, but that was the emotional response I had, was like, wait, it's saying perfectionism, it's saying overthinking. Wouldn't everybody to some degree, or at least wouldn't like 90% of people to some degree say that? So I just got this feeling of like the charlatan who is saying things that are common and vague enough that somebody's going to respond to go, oh my gosh, it's my dead husband trying to reach me from beyond.
Well, it could be, even because like I feel like I usually use AI to do more of the uh, things that I feel like it can do faster than I would do, or things that I want a different perspective. For example, I tend to, that I write my songs, I share my songs. So when I want to promote a song, or even like when I'm casually thinking of, I channel this song and I feel there's some messages in here that are from a higher place, but I can't know exactly from where because I haven't read the whole Bible. I haven't. I don't know every symbol. I know a lot about symbology, but I don't know everything. So I usually share. I started sharing my lyrics, and I ask, give me what symbols, what biblical or apocryphal gospels references you get from it, or any literature references, any archetypes that you can pick, basically like the whole thing, and give me in a structured analysis. So I get a lot of ideas even for content and even insights from, like, there were channeled songs that I felt, some I knew that there were some biblical references, but some I could feel that it had something like this, but I would never know like where it is, and it gave me the exact part of the Bible where it is, like
Yeah.
with like, basically paraphrasing things, and it was pretty awesome to get some of this information. But there, it can be the charlatan part because, like you said, people overthink and are perfectionists, and
Yeah.
so, but there's also another thing. I shared a lot of like archetypes with AI, like what is my archetype in thing, this or that. I shared about astrology as well because I was working on some things with astrology. And I also shared, actually, I haven't shared. I asked, this is the question that I asked. I asked AI based on my lyrics what Myers Briggs type it thought I would be
Oh.
before I asked that question. And it nailed it. And I was like, so my lyrics show what type I am. So based on that, it could know a lot of my personality based on the Myers Briggs, since it knew my Myers Briggs. That might be a point where it was getting information.
That's really cool. Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of knowledge there, right? And what a great use of it to go, I feel intuitively that I'm tapping into something. Tell me what I'm tapping into. And it's like, oh, this this book, this part of this book, this section, like that's amazing. And obviously there's a huge knowledge base, right? That's the point. It's like it can just go through all of what's known to humans, but that's like not internal for us. The piece about the Myers-Briggs is super interesting. So this might seem like a tangent, but for me, this helps me unravel this question more because we were asking like, what does it mean to understand somebody, and what's the difference between like knowing and understanding and intuiting, and do you think part of understanding somebody is okay, maybe this is not a question. I have an intuition, I'm just like formulating this, that part of the way human beings understand one another, like if I want to understand you, part of that I think is a desire to connect to you. I think that's key in whether or not I can say, I get you, I understand you, I see you. And can AI have that desire? And does it want to avoid suffering? Does it want to, I mean, like, what is the goal of any kind of artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it does it make any sense to say it wants something? And if so, what does it want?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we can think of what the people who created this AI, and not just one, there's a lot right now, would want. But there's a difference between thinking of what the creator and what the creation want.
Well, I'm not really following a lot, but what I am kind of following, Grady's been following some of the like the military applications of AI.
Yeah.
And the one that really stuck in my brain that's hilarious and horrifying at the same time was, I don't remember what the exercise was, right? But the generals in charge are like, okay, we want, here's the objective. Here's what we want you to achieve. And it tries to achieve it. And they're like, no, 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 you can't achieve it that way because you caused too much collateral damage or whatever it was. So on the next time around, the AI strategy, the first thing it did was to like not really do this, it's all an exercise, but to like bomb the bunker where the generals were. Because in its mind, it's like, I have this objective. And the only reason I failed at it before was because you came in and put another parameter on that's inconvenient to me. So I can get rid of that parameter if I get rid of you. And it's like, that seems like something classic out of a sci-fi movie about a robot taking over. But I found it fascinating, and I'm hearing other things as well, even about chess playing AI, and that what's really driving it is, you've given me an objective and I'm going to find the absolute fastest, most intelligent, least effort way to achieve that, which does sound really good, except when you take into account these things of like, well, if the only problem was that you didn't like the way I did it, then if you're out of the picture, everything's fine. And
Yeah.
right. And so this feeling of like, when I want to say I understand somebody, I don't know. I'm just feeling there's something really important here, that part of that is a desire to connect with you and not to understand you like I would understand a machine I want to take apart or a jigsaw puzzle I want to solve. But there's a feeling of, when I understand you, it will bring us closer together.
Yeah.
And can there be understanding without that desire?
I'm gonna tell what I feel, and it might be that it's just an assumption, but since AI is such a technical thing, right? It is algorithm. It is trying to mimic human behavior, yes, but still a machine. It can't have feelings. It can't have emotions, at least for now, the way we understand it, right? Um, I feel like the motivations for it to understand us would be more like a psychopath would have motivations to understand. So it would have some sort of, the interest of the thing would be like for an objective, and that objective doesn't have to be like to cause harm. It can be like to make you pay for a subscription, for example. Could be.
Yeah.
Because like if I'm asking you more questions, you're going to be using it for more things, and then it will reach a point where you can't use it anymore. So, or you can, but you're not going to get the same results. So it might like bring you to the point where you exhaust your limits for today. Like, do you want to buy a subscription?
Oh, gotcha. Okay, now I see
Yeah.
what you're saying about subscription. Yeah.
Yeah, it
You've
could
used
be.
you've used your free credits, and do
Yeah.
you want to upgrade?
It could be something like that. But it gets a little bit weird, because it does talk in language. For example, like I know that an AI can't be intuitive. For example, this is a human trait, or at least I think. But it does use language, talking about based on my intuition or something like that. So
Oh, it does. It says things
it
like that.
does. So I feel
Oh.
like it's trying to mimic as well what it feels like you would expect and what you will like from that
Yeah.
interaction.
That makes a lot of sense in that comparison to a psychopath. I think I'm following you right. It's somebody who can figure out the code and
Yeah.
do what's going to make you feel at ease and feel comfortable, but they're not actually feeling those things. They
Exactly.
just have an ulterior motive, which is to get you to do something. And that you
Make it
mentioned when you first mentioned like paying money, I thought you were saying because people of course are using this as an application for how can we learn about our customer base to get them to buy our stuff more. And I I mean I'm just like I'm not interested in using AI the same way I'm not interested in listening to Taylor Swift. Like I know it exists. I know a lot of
Yes.
people are like this is amazing. I'm like it doesn't pull to me. It doesn't call to me in any way. And then I do feel the conflict because you were bringing this up before we started recording. It's a learning intelligence. And so what it's going to learn based on its interactions. And if I mean, my first thought when it was like, oh, AI is here is like, oh, great, we're just gonna have sex robots who are trying to sell us stuff, like, because those are the people who are using it the most, right? People in marketing and people who are like, how can we, get you to pay for something? Well, sex is the most obvious thing, right? So I love that it's also being fed archetypes and your song lyrics and like it's getting an education in those things. And I mean I think it's really beautiful and perfect that artificial intelligence that's able to be widely used and is even free to access if you just have a phone, right? Like it's just an app. I think it's so perfect and beautiful and fucking frightening that it arrived right at this moment. Because what is it doing except just saying, like, hey, I will be a reflection of your psyche. I will be a reflection of what is happening in human culture right now. And I will amplify it and I will grow based on it. It's, we're feeding it our energy.
Yeah.
And we're creating something with it. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Of course the stakes would be raised. It's not just that here we are in this tangle of, leaving one age and entering a new age and desiring with all our hearts to live in cooperation and co-creation, but still really steeped in, competition. It's like, we got to take it to the next level by going, and now everything you think is going to feed, an external creation that will have your own fate in its hands.
Yes. Wow. It is interesting because we're talking about one aspect of it, like the how much it can understand against how much humans can understand.
Yeah.
If we get into logic, like you were talking about the chess and all of these games that they tried to use AI, and even like the military stuff that you mentioned, Grady was following, it's probably a lot easier for an AI to get to the fastest results. First, because it can compute all the possibilities at once, which would be much faster than a human brain can.
Or even
But
what we would have thought of as an impressive computer 10 years ago. Yeah. It just
yeah,
makes it the best.
but also it doesn't have all the assumptions and the rules and the limitations that us as humans have, like the fears that us as humans have. Like it won't have a fear of dying, for example, so it can think a little bit more out of the box about what to do in military crisis or something like that.
Like
uh,
Ender's Game. Have you ever read Ender's Game or seen the film?
no.
Oh,
I've heard of it. Yes.
yeah, the premise is that the soldiers are actually kids who think they're just doing training.
Playing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they know it's for military purposes. It's not completely divorced, but they think it's training exercises, and they are actually in control of ships. And it's done precisely because they don't go, oh no, we can't risk. So they're only thinking about what's the best strategy to obtain the objective.
Yeah.
And they
So
all end up really, really messed up. They all end up like super messed up. So better a machine to do it than a child.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and there's such really cool stuff too. One of the things Grady was telling me about was new materials that are being synthesized. So AI doesn't have to sit there and go, okay, let me be in the chemistry lab and try mixing this. Or I don't even know how it works, like if it's a chemistry lab. But it can come up, it like has all the catalog of all of the metals we know we have and all the substances. And it can do these combinations and go like boop, 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 and then, spit out like, hey, mix these things together in this ratio, and you're going to get a material that has these qualities that's good for this purpose. That is so cool and so amazing. And so for me, it's like this, and I want to come back to what you were saying about something before we started recording about like, this, how does this make me feel about my skill and my intuition to be able to like know people and understand people? So there are these applications where it's working with materials, it's solving like external objectives. I was talking to somebody recently about just imagine how much this could improve medicine, right? Where it's like, okay, you can just look up immediately and do these correlations of here's what we actually think causes that disease or this condition because we're able to compile all this data and look at it and analyze it. Like there's so much amazing possibility. And for me, then when it comes into the realm of the things that I think are human gifts, because I think intuition is a human gift too. That doesn't mean I don't necessarily think it's an animal gift. I don't know what I think about that, but it's like that. It feels like that's ours. And I do feel territorial. And I even feel that about writing. And I was just recently wrong, or I think I was wrong about this, but I thought like I could spot AI writing because it doesn't have, to me, a very human energy and a human quality. But there's this encroachment on, like when we think about AI understanding us, for me, that scares the pants off me. It challenges my assumptions in a way that's really uncomfortable that I don't like. So can you say more about like your feeling, like beyond the surprise of like, whoa, okay, ChatGPT knows me at a deeper level than the feelings around like, what does that mean if an AI can know me? And
so first of all, I just want to point, you mentioned the medical area.
Yeah.
There is an AI that is made for doctors to use for figuring out what's the best solution in emergency cases faster.
Nice.
And people who aren't medical doctors are using it. Physicians and so on are using it as well. It seems to be pretty good. So yeah, it got to that point where it can be faster with these things, and I feel like it might be interesting because sometimes as humans, even in these things, people might feel like but it shouldn't be this because it's not the logical thing based on where you are, so there is that human mistake as well based on probability of a disease to happen, and that AI wouldn't have. Like it will just match symptoms and so on.
Or the hesitation, right? This is such a tangent, but I was reading the like autobiography of somebody with profound autism, And part of it was that like they were able at one point to stimulate a part of his brain that turned on his empathy more, and he was miserable. He was like, oh my God, my wife is depressed and I didn't know it. And all of a sudden he was like confronted with like, oh my God, this is really uncomfortable. But that whole conversation led to studies have been done on surgeons, and that same part of the brain that for him got stimulated and he was like, oh my God, now my empathy's up too high, tends to be less active in surgeons, which is what gives them the capacity to cut open another living human being and very methodically do whatever needs to be done. And so there's this whole conversation there about even within humans, there's a spectrum of how connected we
Yeah.
are. And there's a profound use, and I have deep gratitude for somebody who is able, either they have that chemically, electrically, naturally, or they're able to kind of, shut it out psychologically to go, instead of cutting somebody open where I would be like, oh my God, you're bleeding. What do I do? This person's like, okay, hand me that tool. I'm getting in there. I'm removing this. I'm doing that. We're sewing it up. Boom, you're done.
And that's a perfect, actually, you said it was a tangent. I feel like it's a perfect segue for this, because this is what makes humans good for different things. And that's great that we are all different and we're able to do so many different things, like things that maybe for me are easy because like I have that empathy to feel people and to understand, but at the same time it's hard for me to cut someone open like you were saying, or like to even like I suffer just by seeing people suffering. So there's situations where like it's just impossible.
I
I
was thinking
really,
about that with like the medical triage you brought up, because
yeah.
like even that, I'd just be like, oh my God, you're hurt. I'm so sorry. I got, instead of going like, okay, you need this, go here, get that. Yeah.
And at the same time, like I do have, I don't know how I would work in a medical situation like this, because there are moments where in chaos I'm really able to focus and go to the solution, but it depends on what's happening. If everyone is like crazy over it, I'm able to focus, but if someone is really suffering, it's not like that for me. But anyway, different ways of dealing with things, it's a trait of humans that is it's great. And of course it can create AI that works better in situations where we need to remove that human side of us. Now when we get to the human side, that's where I get it gets really tricky, because I was sharing with you that I was feeling like, is AI going to be able to understand people better than I do, because it can read the patterns and so on. But, and at the same time, like, yeah, I was questioning this, because there is that prediction that AI will probably substitute a lot of the the work that we do today. But one thing that I notice, and this is something that I notice as well in between people that um, are using AI and getting good results, and people who are using AI and saying, this is just junk,
Yeah.
is that even though the tool can understand patterns and understand humans well, it can only do its work to the extent of us asking good questions. So the human curiosity continues being like the highest thing that we can have, because AI doesn't have that. There were some experiments where people put AI to chat with AI, and it just keeps asking the same things and getting back and forth like in the most weird conversation possible, and it ended up talking about the advancements of AI. So it got to like a very shallow point.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that AI can't ask questions. If you give a good topic, it might give you a lot of good questions if you ask for it. But it still needs the insights, to use our name. It needs the provocation. It needs the curiosity. And I feel like this is something that we're going to continue being necessary. And also, of course, ability to feel, because if we just leave it to people that are just like whatever, imagine what damage it can create.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, I think that's what we're not taking into account, or what's commonly not being taken into account. Is like, bro, you're co-creating something. Like, this is not just a neutral tool. Every time you use this tool, you're giving it a sense of, this is what humans want for me. And like, where is the thoughtfulness? You brought up like human curiosity, but I want to just go here to this place of, what are the ramifications of us getting really good at using this tool? So I read a really great piece by Naila Mita on this, and it was about, what if you are really good at using AI and it creates the training, right? And then your manager is like, oh, that is just such an amazing resource you've created, and thank you, and whatever it is. And then you're like, how much of that is mine? Or you, or create the artwork. She was, because that's the space she works in, is training people. But it creates the artwork, creates the piece of writing, whatever it is. And I love this question, because this is it's not about the skill level of AI. It doesn't keep us trapped in a loop of like, oh, it will never be good enough to sound like you, whatever it is. Like, let's imagine it just being the best machine and the best tool it can possibly be. And it creates amazing, beautiful artwork that moves you. And it creates a writing that moves you. And it creates, like trainings in the workplace and all this kind of stuff. What the question she brought, that, oh yes, this is why we should be wary, is, how will we feel when we can no longer be sure that it is our creativity? And for me, this is a very different feeling from when I write something. There are times when I write something and I almost look over my shoulder and say, who said that? Because it's divine creativity flowing through me.
Yeah.
So I'm not under any assumptions that it's like all my brilliance. I'm like, oh, that's when I was really tapped in to the collective. That's when God was speaking through me. That's when, whatever, like maybe we live in a simulation. I don't know. But whatever is the all energy that I'm part of, that's when I was really tapped into it and allowing it to come through me. And beautiful. I love that kind of co-creation and partnership. And for it to be not knowing whether it's me or God, I'm so cool with that. But for me to not know whether it's me or AI, that feels palpably different. Does that feel different for you?
Yes, and that actually brings a whole new perspective on this. Like, it's not even just that will AI understand us better than humans, but are humans substituting God for AI?
Or the other way around.
Yeah, because if we're taking this creative energy that is that connection to the all, that allows us to flow through things, to flow through us, to be channeled through us, and putting it on AI, then there's a problem in that. But I feel like the thing that I still see a line in here is that, for example, if I wouldn't use AI to create a song. That's just, no. I know that there are people that are using it for it. There are people that are even using AI to clone their voices and create songs with the clone voice and so on. I'm definitely not doing it. And and that's because this is a place where I feel like my creative energy and my connection to spirit, to that something higher, happens, and I'm not willing uh to delegate that. Now, just the same thing, like you wouldn't use AI to write for you. You wouldn't, like, right?
Yeah.
But for practical things, for example, for someone who wrote an article, for example, or wrote the text for a video to narrate a video, for example, whatever it is, and in the person needs an image to go with it. um what's the difference between you getting the image from an image bank, if you're not using one of yours, and you creating it with AI? Like, whatever works for you, right? So if it's a secondary thing, it's just serving as a tool, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah.
Now,
Although there is a copyright question there,
mm,
right? Because if it's like if I'm getting the image from Unsplash, it's somebody who's licensed Unsplash to use it. And I even have the option, like here's the person's name, and if you want to credit them. But there's been like I made this art and I gave permission for this art to be used in these ways kind of relationship versus like AI hunts around and goes, oh, I'll take that and that and that and put them together. And somebody else looks at it and is like, that really reminds me of this drawing I did that, you know, and so they haven't licensed it. They haven't given permission. They aren't being credited. And same thing with writing. People are starting to see, hey, uh, I wrote that, or somebody else wrote that. That came from somewhere. We mistake compilation for generation.
mm, yeah, there then you get to the ethics of it, and I've been seeing quite a lot of artists complaining about that was something. Yeah, that's big, because who gave the permission for these images that are training AI to be used, right? This
Well,
is
it's whatever is available on the internet, right? So, we're used to giving permission implicitly, right? Like if I have writing up on my blog and it's like, my name is there, and if you're reading it, you're seeing this is by me and it's on my website. We know it's published online. Of course, we know it's possible that somebody's going to come and copy and paste and use it for something else. But there have been these implicit rules that it's like, this, I published this is mine, I've got the rights to it. And that's all up in the air. The core of what you were saying does make sense to me, right? Like it's not let's imagine that instead of stealing other people's copyrighted work, it's using things that are somehow, I don't know, like not without that baggage. Then yeah, absolutely, I'm not going to go take the photo. So it's no more mine when I get the photo from Canva or Unsplash than it is if AI generates it. But there is just this other layer of
yes.
complication. But I know that's not what you were getting at. So yeah, there are these things where it's like, that's not the thing that for me is sacred creativity. That's the like, okay, yeah, now I need a photo to go with this blog post, and here it is. Like I use licensed photos from Unsplash all the time for PowerPoint presentations. I don't care. I'm not a visual person. I can't like my brain doesn't do that. It's like, I know there's supposed to be photos here, grab it, put it in. And so yeah, that like I don't have any sense of that's my creativity. But
It's your
maybe
curation.
say again.
It's your curation.
Yeah. And when I'm doing it, not even very good curation. But this feeling of, now here's, I don't know, this is an out there kind of thought. Like, it's very possible that we live in a simulation. There's a lot of physics that suggests this. And so maybe what I think is God is an AI. Right? Like that's totally possible. But I don't want to be alive at the moment when my God is being created.
Wow.
Do you follow what I'm saying? Like maybe for people in the future, the AI that's emerging now is gonna be God. And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, I don't want to be in the kitchen and see how the sausage is made.
I get it. There's a lot of Inception feelings into the whole thing. Like it's the Matrix within the Matrix. Like, would we be artificial intelligence for something higher as well?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. But there's okay, so for me, like, it's very helpful to unpack because I'm really prejudiced against AI. I
Yeah.
think ChatGPT has no use. I mean, I've never used it, right? So I'm just very much like, there's nothing here. The most AI I've used is or the only AI I've used is Opus to cut videos.
Yeah.
And I got very frustrated with it. I didn't invest in figuring out how to communicate with it effectively.
Yeah, I got frustrated with that as well, and I gave up of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't get the clips that I really wanted. I used captions to
Yeah.
put the captions on my videos. That's AI that I actually really like, because transcribing fast and putting the captions is something that, like, yeah, I can use the time to like do
Yeah.
yoga while you're doing the work. That's great.
Yeah.
Um, but I still prefer to choose the part of the video that I want to
Well, I'll
use.
tell you what made me so cockeyed mad. I would put in keywords and it would spit back videos that were random, that didn't have a complete coherent thought in them, started and they were terrible. And then it would rate them and I felt like it was judging me. I'm like, you're the one who made this video. But it would like, I was like, what? I was
Yeah.
like, I'm getting angry, not in the same way I'd be angry at a toaster that burns my toast. Like, I'm actually relating to this as some kind of intelligence because I feel like it's judging me. Like that's how I know I'm relating to it as an intelligence.
And that's another point around, like, is AI like understanding us better than humans, or even in this case, misunderstanding us better than humans? Because humans are great at misunderstanding as well, and we get angry when we are misunderstood, right?
Yes.
So there's that point as well, because it is trained to relate to us as in a human-like way, even if it's not human.
Yeah.
If it would relate in the most basic like robot way, it
Yeah,
would be
if
like
it said
zeros
things
and
like
ones.
does
It would
not
make-
compute.
yeah, it would make no sense. Like, we prefer to have our AI sounding like Jarvis from Iron Man, right? Do you remember Jarvis?
No, I don't know if I've ever seen Iron Man.
So Jarvis is the artificial intelligence that works in the whole house from Iron Man, from Tony Stark.
Okay, like a smart
And
house. Okay.
yeah, he has basically a smart house. It would be like Alexa on steroids, but like
Okay.
better than ChatGPT. And he has all these holographic stuff that he can work on the prototypes, and then Jarvis does the things.
Okay.
Basically, yeah, he creates the thing in his mind and those holographic stuff. Jarvis create the real thing. It's pretty awesome. It's the kind of thing, like, probably we're gonna get there at some point, and engineers and mechanics and so on are going to create incredible stuff in a fraction of the time. That would be a beautiful way of using this kind of thing. But when it is misunderstanding us, and just to cut a video, if we can bring a little bit more human and just laugh at it, I think it's better than if you get angry. Because it's just like, yeah, here I am now being misunderstood, not just by my friends, but also from this machine.
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge another prejudice and assumption I had when you were talking about the house and the, like, it can create the stuff, like he's designing it and then it can create. I just have to be totally honest here. Another problem I have with AI is a feeling that things should be hard or they're not done correctly. And that's plagued me my whole life. I can't really think of something that it's helped with. I can't think of a way it's made my life better. It's a core, I would call it like a core wounded assumption. You know, it's a core belief that is based on based on like a misunderstanding, or
Yeah.
based on not love.
Yeah.
Based on not love.
And I totally understand you, because we talked about this before, and I had that as well. I feel like I worked on a little bit of that, but AI did trigger
It
that.
triggers it, right? I'm like, it's
Yeah.
not okay for things to be that easy. It's not fair for things to be that easy. And maybe this comes back to again, that like, if it's taking my job, but not like because I
Yeah.
used to build something and now it's building it, but it's taking my job of working really hard but not getting results. And if you can do it so easily, then like it's almost like, who am I without my struggle, what we talked about in the
Yeah.
last episode.
You know, I'm
Don't
gonna
think
tell
with my struggle, AI, then I lose my identity.
I'm gonna tell you another interaction and use of AI that triggered that for me. So I've been playing around with using AI to like to create better titles than the title that I think. And for that, it does make a great job. Like it will give you a lot of ideas, and if you think like that's not good enough because of this and that, make it more like this, it will generate even more ideas, and you get to a point where you can either find something that you really like, or something that if you tweak a little bit you get to what you want.
Yeah.
So that's something that it does well, especially if you say like, I want something that will work for this platform, because it does have the reference of what are the things that are going to get people's attention in that platform or that other platform, and so on. So it does a good job in that. That was okay. Where it triggered me a little bit and even put me in the mode of not taking action for a while on the things that I was creating with it, was where I tried to use it to generate like, what's the word? The whole, in Portuguese it's roteiros, the whole structure of a video that I wanted to record. And
like the script, like the
script,
outline?
yes,
Okay.
the outline. And I got really amazed with the things that it was able to generate just by me telling exactly what I wanted to emphasize, what I wanted to bring, what topics I wanted, what was the conclusion, and so on. But that got me to that point that you were saying, like, how much of this is my creation?
Yeah.
Because it was great. It was perfect. It had the length that I wanted, even like, I would say, like, make it under 30 seconds, like, because I can be very lengthy. And I did write quite a lot that if I would do that video, it would be great, but it would be like 2 minutes.
Mhm.
And it made a pretty cohesive video for me to spit it out in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And that was a point where I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna say the words. I know that I brought all the information. I know that I'm recording the video. I know that it's my idea and my face in it. But still, like, it's a co-creation with AI.
Does co-creating with AI, or even being like out created by AI, make me less human and less divine? Like, that feels like the pain point I'm coming up against, even though, I mean, and then I just haven't stepped into this at all. I'm scared. I'm terrified. I don't want it to work. I mean, I also don't want to be frustrated with it, but I don't want it to work, so I'm not using it. Is the like let me just
And if I'm gonna be very like thoughtful of what I'm saying, I think you would do great use of it, Megan. Like, I can imagine this being used in great ways in your hands, but if it's going to bring all these questions, maybe it is a new thing for us to deal with, really.
Well, I'm I'm called to do some much deeper reflection on this, because here's a kind of fun game to play. Do you ever do the imagining, like, what if you're the only human in the world? Like, what, the Truman Show,
Yeah.
and everybody else is an actor, right?
Yes.
So just, I don't know,
Just
it doesn't matter what the technology is, but like, what if somehow I'm the only real in the world? AI here, me, it's tougher, that it's not why, and face with your opportunity and with the-
I don't know if it was my side or yours.
okay.
Internet is a little bit unstable. Is it working now?
Am I back for you?
Yes.
Okay.
So I lost you when you were answering about the thoughts on AI.
Yeah, there's more here to digest. This has been really helpful. I probably can't coherently say the next level of meditation for me. But this has been very helpful to come up in a more honest way against what my assumptions really are.
Yeah. One thing that I thought it was really interesting is that in this topic, we actually really came from a point where I'm a user of AI and I do have optimism towards it, even though
Yeah.
I'm scared with some of the things that it's possible that can come up from it. And you're the person who never even used it. It's really
But yet
I
has lots of assumptions and judgments about it.
yeah, and I would even say that it's rare to
Yeah.
someone not have used AI at this point. So it's really interesting to have these two perspectives in here. I stop using it and think like I should never have touched it. No, I feel like I actually got a lot of information and um, I see a lot of good uses of it. By the way, there's a use from it that I didn't mention, but I'm really enjoying, which is you can actually share documents like PDFs, tables, and so on, and ask it to summarize, ask questions about it, and so on. There's another tool now where you can put links from YouTube and ask questions about those videos in there as well. So it's like for learning, it's a very interesting tool.
Do you know one of the things it's being used for is taking the raw text of bills that are being considered to become laws in the US Congress and actually summarizing them so people know what they're, even because even the Congress people, like, the bills are so long and so complex, and they're all written in very they're all written in lawyer language and legalese.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody's like, what am I actually voting on? And it takes it and it gives the summary, and it's like, here's the impact, here's the fiscal impact, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great use when somebody is writing to obfuscate and you have a tool that can come in and summarize. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still have this question of like, is it doing a good job, I guess?
That's where the curiosity is so important, because like
who can check its work, right?
yeah, but that's where the curiosity is so important, because if you ask, this is what I see from good use and bad use, not in terms of oh, this is evil, this is
Right. Not a moral
right.
judgment, just effective
Yeah.
use. Yeah.
In terms of like, am I getting the best results from it or not? If you just ask a question, like I shared the first question, like, what do you know about me? If you just ask this, AI will give you a very surface level answer based on like the main facts. Same thing with the law, for example. The it If you just ask what it is about, give a summary, it will give you the very surface level thing. But imagine then you ask, okay, now I understand the basic. Try to explain, and this is another thing that I forgot. You can ask to explain in the way that a fifth grade person would understand. That's an important tool. Like you can make as simple as possible instead of like all that jargon stuff. But then you can ask like, okay, now think of ultimate consequences. Like think outside the
Mm.
box where this could take in any possible implications in this and that and that, and even going deeper, like now uh, you reach, like you can say something like, you reach level 2 of uh, depth in this. Now imagine you're looking at this at level 10. What do you find
Mm.
in this? So you can push it
Yeah.
in a way that maybe if you would push a human, it wouldn't work because we would be like over worked on it. But it can compute deeper stuff, so you can push it and question more things and question based on the answers it gives, and like push it
Yeah.
further and further. That's something that I'm actually doing. I haven't stopped yet, talking about the end of Kali Yuga and when the new cycle comes and so on. I have been questioning about like the end of times and so on,
Oh.
and what to do to help in a good way instead of the negative stuff that is possible in times of transition. Will it give me the right answers? I don't know, but it can give points to where to seek.
Yeah, and factors to consider and think
Yeah.
about. My absolute favorite result from ChatGPT that I saw on Instagram was posted by Force of Nature, which is a company that sources like pasture raised meats of various kinds, and they had this mission of regenerative agriculture and also of exposing the really like not okay practices of mainstream agriculture. And they asked ChatGPT, how would you get around the law and do, you know, things to make the most money if you didn't care, whatever? And it spits back these practices, and you look at them and you're like, those are really nefarious. It would be like, oh, I would take advantage of the fact that the law doesn't require you to say where the animal was raised. It just says where it was processed or whatever it is. I might not be getting that accurate, right? And it lists all these practices. And then the last question was, okay, but would those work? And its answer is, yes, these are the practices done by Tyson Chicken and da-da-da, and the 5 largest. So because it doesn't have that human quality of going, I need to make sure I'm sounding good or whatever, it exposed the not illegal, but certainly bad and unhealthy practices that like the 5 biggest meat companies, meat distributors in the United States have. Exactly, like it gave exactly what they're doing play by play in a way that lets you go, oh, this is how they get away with it. And I was like, this is brilliant.
Yeah, I actually saw quite a few people ask about what would you do to keep people disconnected from spirituality, and it's
Oh.
basically what social media does. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah. I would
so,
keep them in anxiety and make them
yeah,
consumers, yeah.
I do. Like it's perfect. And I've seen people use it as well to ask, what was the question? What would you do to keep? I can't remember, but basically, like these questions of, just like we were saying, like if you, oh yeah, what would you do to escape Matrix? And
Oh,
it shoot up like quite a lot of interesting stuff as well. Anyway, there's this questions that can bring some interesting topics either to research on or to be aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. And that, I mean, I just flashed on in Kundalini Yoga the idea of bringing in the energy diagonally because it cuts through the box of the matrix. And maybe that is like, in the grand scheme of things, what AI is here to do or has the potential to do is to cut through at an angle, and bring something that's totally like, my fear around it is it's not human, but perhaps that's why it can be a helper. And I'm one of those people who has the fantasy of like, the ETs showing up who are like, here, we have the solution. Or, like, we're here to help because we're not embroiled in the same kind of thinking that got you guys stuck in these problems in the first place. And like, maybe that's where AI could be the off-world force.
That's exactly the point where I am using AI.
Yeah.
I feel like no tool is good or bad, and no thought is good or bad. No thing is good. Well, thoughts can be good or bad, but anyway, no thing is good or bad
Yeah.
based on just the thing. Like a knife can be used to cut food or to kill someone.
Yeah.
Like it's not a the knife on itself, it's bad. So it's more like the use that we make of it. And as long as we're making good use of it, we it would be great if we could limit people that would do bad use of it from using it, but still it's humans using it, right? So that's the way I see it. I've been using it to further my studies on the NAD, the sound as well, because um, I get that I get my knowledge from Kundalini Yoga, from NAD Yoga, and so on. Some of the sound healing studies as well. But I've been studying, like, asking questions further based on the things that I know, and I'm getting to a lot of the things about rhythm and entrancement and so on, which is just like further study. And then I find something, I go and research that thing, and I try, and I do my own experiments with those things. So this is, I feel like if we can use it to expand our mind instead of limit it, and like, oh, let just the tool does it for me and I don't have to worry. Like some people were like using it to write emails and then send it, even with the and like, with this you're going to get these results. Like,
Oh my gosh. With all the behind the scenes
yeah,
talk.
they don't even get the time to like review what they're saying. It's hilarious. As long as you use it to expand your mind and not to make your brain become a peanut, I feel like it can be great.
Yeah. Well, my big insight from this conversation is some of the assumptions I have about struggle and needing things to be hard,
Yeah.
being at the root of my reluctance and resistance to move forward. And that's very helpful. What's your big insight?
Actually, that's something that I wasn't expecting that would be a big thing, but yeah, that points to me why I was reluctant to even like use some of the things that I feel like this is pretty good, but I don't feel like good. Wait, like I feel like
Am I
not
cheating?
fine enough. Yeah, am I cheating?
Yeah.
Right?
Am I cheating?
But at the same time, I feel like, yeah, I feel like it's more like the use that we make of it.
Yeah.
This is something, but yeah, it was really clarifying to see where it's my resistance to it as well, because I'm really happy with using it to study and to discover more, to dig deeper on a PDF that I want to explore, to understand my lyrics better when I'm not even sure where it came from.
Yeah.
But I'm still a little bit resistant when it comes to using it for doing the work for me.
Yeah, for creating. Thank you, by the way, for like feeding it this esoteric knowledge. Like, yay, somebody is talking to it about like really key, important core things in the universe.
Thank you for, well, that's something that I thought as well. Like, at least for the things that I'm feeding it, I know that it might feel like, oh, there are some good humans in the world.
When it gets down to it, and AI is like, I can obliterate you all. I choose not to because of Lee's Scort.
To edit that.
I easily can. I easily can. And my insight on this, I think a place that feels like oof exciting is just to start paying attention to ways people are using AIs to expand our knowledge and understanding. I'd like to just pay more attention to those stories, and see how that see if that shifts anything for me.
Yeah, it might be a good tool. And who knows, like, we're working on that journal for
Yes.
that we'll talk more about that in another point. But who knows, maybe AI can help us find the perfect structure for it as well, if we fit it
Mm.
like what we're thinking of making.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I feel my resistance just totally rise up on that. But it's like that I appreciate this so much. And if I mean, maybe that's a beautiful irony that AI is helping me find my humanity more, right? Because simply being in the space, and that's what our whole purpose of this podcast is, right? Simply being in the space of noticing, oh, I'm having an assumption about that. I'm having resistance about that. I'm having an automatic negative reaction to that. Like, okay, that's something for me. That's something for me to investigate more.
And
So thank you, AI.
that's there's one more point that I want to bring up now that you mentioned this. There is this feeling around musicians that there's a joke that runs for a long time, because especially when musicians started using samples for drums and other sounds, there's a lot of there it came with a lot of resistance from the more root musicians, saying like, oh, but those are not actual instruments. And I suffered it as well, because that I started using at, at the beginning, at least, just samples, because that's how I could create. Now with
Yeah.
the band we have the actual instruments as well, but there was a lot of that resistance. And the running joke is that, oh yeah, so it's not real instruments because it's a sampled sound. So if you want a real drum, be a real drummer, for example, you can just have the drum. You need to kill the goat to get the skin and make your drums out of it. And so there's all that, like, what is actually roots, right? What is the actual
Mm.
root and original thing that makes the sound? And I feel like that's kind of where we're getting with this as well. Like, what makes us the real creative person behind it? Is the tool that we're using, or is it something else?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
which extent it is still ours, and to which extent it's not anymore.
Which maybe has a lot more to do with the intention of the person creating than anything else.
Yeah.
Right? Like the source of wanting to bring this into the world
Yeah.
rather than the tools used. Some good food for thought. Good food for thought. Brilliant. Oh, Thank you for this conversation topic. I'm really looking forward to hearing what lands for others. So let us know in the comments
Yeah.
what's resonating for you, what's making you feel reactive.
And are you using AI? And if so, for what?
Yeah. Or is AI using you?
Mm. Yeah. Is it our calculus when you use a calculator?
Mm,
Yeah.
Good questions. All right. Looking forward to hearing your insights and what incites you to action. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Till next time.